gathered up. This week is all about Children's Week. And as always, this All Gathered Up show is where we go into detail of the techniques that come up on each episode of the Great British Sewing Bee. And we go into detail about the techniques and tools that come up. And we do that with our master tailor and couturier, Carol, as always, who's here with us. Hey, Carol.
Hey, Stuart, how goes?
Goes very well. I'm a lot calmer now after watching the episode, because it was a tough one, wasn't it? And we'll go straight into it, because we had to say goodbye to Adam, didn't we?
Oh yes, big deep breaths when I watched the show, because I didn't expect that, not at all. I think he's probably one of the most improved candidates as well, and to see him have just a bad time. And he was out. And I think my problem with the show is I'm willing it to be cumulative. It's not.
I know. I think, and many people have chatted about that. I think it causes problems with the judges and having to total up and keep scores and things. So I can understand why they don't do it, because because it makes it more complicated probably, but sometimes we want it, don't we?
I think it would help if it were a little bit more complicated, because now it's based on feelings, and you hear language like, I really like this, when really what we want to say is, this was a success because you did this, or this worked, or this was neat, or this was efficient, or whatever.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
It would be nice if the judges said that a bit more, so we get more of the techniques and the skills and the learning, wouldn't it?
I think
right, well, we will go into more detail of the show. We'll talk more about the Transformation Challenge and the Made to Measure, but we're going to go straight in with the Pattern Challenge, because the Pattern Challenge has the techniques that we're going to look at today. So what are we focusing on today then?
We're going to look at two things, Stuart. We're going to look at this concept of stitching in the ditch, which is when you have two sections together, maybe they're both straight, you've got a seam there, and you want to anchor. So you stitch right between those two seams. And what you're doing, if you pull the seams apart, if it's just two straight sections, you pull them apart, you can actually see ladders of stitches. You're actually stitching on the stitch line. You're stitching through those threads. How do you make that strong? How does it support itself? You've got a facing underneath. You've got another piece of fabric underneath. You're stitching through this ladder of thread, and you're anchoring it to another layer of fabric. So that's how you get the architecture to sit right. So stitching in the ditch, and then the other thing is this fasteners, the snaps. And so something I never use, which is the plastic snaps. I think they're a bit brutal, It makes so much noise. They're hard to snap and they're hard to unsnap. And anyway, I do have a few in stock, so we're going to take a look at that as well.
Brilliant. Well, let's go into it then, the Pattern Challenge, because as I say, the snaps and the stitch in the ditch came up. The whole stitch in the ditch came out. Now, as a quilter, I was very familiar with the term, because it's sometimes introduced as an easy technique for someone to quilt, for a newbie quilter to quilt for the first time, because it's a straight line. But when I tried it, it's actually really hard, I find, because you've got to really concentrate to try and keep your needle in that seam line. So I actually thought that was a really difficult thing to do.
I have to say, it's not easy. I have one of those feet. I never use it. It's whatever, because I think in dressmaking, you very rarely do you have a straight run, a long straight line. So I just keep having to steer it, and each stitch goes slightly to the right or to the left. So you just have to keep watching. And to rely on that foot is, I think, it's just in the way.
You're right about straight lines, which is why it's often used as a beginner's stitch to do for quilting. But as I say, if you go wrong, it's like, you can see it. So right, let's take a look at this tutorial then that Carol's done for us, to make it all clear about how to do stitch in the ditch.
We're going to look at what it means to stitch in the ditch, which is basically sewing a line of stitching in the middle of the join of your seam. Now there's special feet that you can get for your machines. I don't use these. I do everything by eye. And again, stitching right in the center of the join. So we have a prepared section here with some gathers in it and some straight section. And what I try to do when I'm stitching in the ditch is leave a little bit of extra fabric on the waistband or the facing so that you can roll it over and cover up your stitch in the ditch. You can also use a back stitch by hand, and this takes a little bit longer, but it accomplishes the same thing and more invisibly so. So now we're going to look at a straight section, and we're going to stitch in the ditch of this waistband between the band and the trouser. You can see here that the seam has been sewn together with the waistband, opened out, and pressed flat. So if you were to stretch these two apart, your garment and the waistband, you can actually see the line of stitching, and this is where your needle is going to go, right in the middle. So how that gets reinforced is with the inside facing here. It's been prepared so that when it's all finished, it'll cover up that raw edge. Now, we're going to stitch in the ditch, and I like to have my needle fall to the right of the ditch. It's just, I find it just more comfortable. So here we line the needle up, and we're going to work very slowly, and you can see here that I'm pulling both sections apart just to keep the fabric taut so that it's easier for me to see exactly where that needle needs to fall. And where I'm most comfortable is the needle falls just to the right of that ditch. So we carry on, just keep checking that your work is flat, that your facing is indeed under your work, and we'll come up to this dart section here. I've put the dart in because I wanted to talk about it can be difficult when you're going over a section like a dart or a pleat or a gather. The needle wants to wobble a little bit, so it's just something that you need to be a little bit more careful of here. And when you're finished, you can take your work out and then you can just check how you've done. Make sure everything is invisible. And you have indeed stitched right in the middle. And there's, in this case, a little bit of extra fabric to just roll over and conceal that line of stitching. Now we're going to look at a gathered section. So I have some gathers and I have some pleats here. And again, this can be a little tricky, not as easy as the straight section. So let's say this top part was actually the bodice of a dress or the yoke of a skirt or a pair of trousers. Because it's going to hang straighter, you're not going to have any additional room to roll over and hide your stitches. So you have to be a little bit more careful. In this case, I've prepared a simple binding. So this could be a waistband or the binding on the edge of a sleeve, say. Once again, I'm going to work so that my needle falls to the right of the ditch. And I'm going to be extra careful to keep all my work flat, make sure that facing is indeed underneath, and make sure that the work to the right, the gathers, are all pulled taut. And I don't know if you can see it in this film, but I'm actually pulling both sections apart. So the tinier waistband on the left and the work on the right, once I have everything all set up and even, I'm going to pull each side apart just so it exposes that ditch a little easier. When you go over gathers, you can kind of sense that the machine wants to wobble a little bit over this section. But just work slowly. Once again, check your facing, make sure everything is flat and neat. You can separate the gathers with your fingers so that you can see that exposed ditch. And here we go. I can tell that I've overrun onto the waistband. So this isn't a time to panic at all. Just stop your work, take the stitches out, and clean everything up on both sides. And then just pick up where you left off. So here we go. Check your facing again underneath. Get your section all organized and just go back to that point that didn't go so accurately and just pick up. And once again, just a light tug on both sides, both of your hands. And I'm going a little bit faster because it may be that I was chugging along a bit too slowly. And that's what caused it to ride up on the facing. So now we've gone over the gathers, we've gone over the pleats, and now we've come to the end. And once again, we have, because this is a binding, we have a little bit extra room just to roll over and cover our stitches. And now we've seen two examples, and I want to show you what it looks like on the underside. So you've stitched on the ditch, and in this gathered section, which is a tight little binding, you can see that we've just caught the facing. In the straight waistband, you can see the invisible stitch in the ditch there, and the finished edge on the inside of the trouser that indeed does cover all the raw edge of that waistband. So there's two examples of stitching in the ditch.
So let's go on to our second focus. Well, it's not really a technique as such, is it? It's how to do it, which is these snaps. Now, I've done snaps before, but when you don't do them regularly, those tools and seeing those ends, it's like, how do you do it? It's something that looks really easy, but actually is quite complicated and confusing because they look all similar, don't they? I know it's like kind of a male and female and attached to them, but I can understand why some of them struggled with it.
Oh, absolutely. And there was this big warning that, oh, you can't use, heavy fabric with it. And as I said, Stuart, I don't use these plastic things because I just think they're pretty vulgar things. Yeah. And so, but I did a test, and if you listen to this, it's so loud. But yeah. This is double leather. I don't know if you can see it. You may not be able to see it, but it's all in the preparation. So I snapped together two fabrics. One is a really lightweight jersey knit.
Yeah.
And the other one is 2 layers of leather.
Wow, so, you put it through.
Of course you get it through because it's actually quite a clever thing. You have what looks like a thumbtack. It's a plastic thumbtack, and then the thumbtack rests on its end into this little cradle, and then when you squeeze the tool together, this tool. When you squeeze it together, what happens is it smashes that thumbtack and it spreads it out, this piece of plastic, and it fills that space.
Right.
And then that's what secures it. So, and you do that to the top, and you do it at the male end, and you do that to the female end. So, but there's other ways of doing it. You'll see in the video that you can use popper tape, which is on a nice herringbone cotton strip. And, they're all spaced out nicely for you. And all you have to do is sew those on. You can also hand sew on your poppers or your snaps, whatever you call the metal ones.
Oh, yes. I remember spotting those in the shop.
Yeah. So I think that was another ringer thrown in, just like the Breton top stay stitch tape. Yeah. It was just another one of those things. We'll get them on this. So, and they warn you in the beginning. I think Esme said, "Oh, you can't use a thick cloth." Well, you can. Yeah. But you have to prepare it with. You have to put a hole in so that thumbtack will go through, and then it's a piece of cake.
Okay.
But then so.
Well,
there you go. But it did stop everybody. I mean, it was heartbreaking to see. I mean, there was not a whole lot of time to make that garment.
No.
And that was a lot of pressure. And then, so that at the end, that's a lesson there. Read the directions, read them through. What do you have to do last? Can you do that thing last when you're out of time? And make a sample, perhaps. That would have helped.
Yeah. Right, well, let's go in and take a look at this tutorial of how to do the snap fastenings and what they're all about.
There are so many different kinds of fasteners, buttons, button kits, gripper snaps, and each one of these kits come with its own set of tools to install the fastener. So it's a good idea to keep everything separate so that when you need them in a hurry, you can reach for them. And keep the directions. You may think you know them, but you can forget so easily. We're going to install 2 different snap fasteners, a metal and a plastic. Each set contains a top and then either an inward end or an outward end. And each set of these poppers or snaps has its separate tool. So this is a pair of pliers, and it has this attachment that holds the top and the bottom sections of this popper. Here's a metal set. Again, we have a decorative top and an outward end, the bottom and the inward end. The outward end poppers over the inward end. And to do that, it's installed with this tool that has this type of an attachment where both the top and the bottom fit right in. And it's struck with a hammer to complete the installation. So now we're going to install a plastic snap using a pair of pliers. I've prepared a placket. I know what side of the placket is going to popper over the undersection, and I've marked the placement with a pin. I've transferred this to the underside just to make sure that everything is going to line up. And we have 4 pieces of plastic here. We have the outward section and its cap, and that's going to popper over the inward section and its cap using the pliers. So we're going to start installing the outward section, and I need to prepare the hole. So take your awl and just twist it lightly through the fabric. If you're too aggressive with this, you could split a thread and you can cause a run in the fabric. Transfer with the awl again to your marking on the underside of the placket, and work just carefully until the awl pierces all layers of fabric. We've got 4 layers here that we're creating the same hole in. Check it. If you need to push the awl through again on the underside, you do that just to make sure you have a nice clean hole. And now you're going to take your top section. This is the thing that looks like the thumbtack, and you're going to push it through that hole and make sure it goes all the way through. And now you can take the pair of pliers and you can see how that top section, looks like a thumbtack, rests right in that white plastic attachment. Now take your outer popper or snap, line everything up with your fingers, and before you do anything else, I like to draw the fabric away from the top section and just check that everything is in line before you squeeze the pliers together. Nice firm grip, and when you remove the pliers you can see. Nice clean job. It's in there, it's stable, it's secure. And now we're ready to install the inward section. Check first that you've got this right way around, and it is indeed going to work. It's going to popper over, because once you get these things in, there's no turning back. So this time, the end cap goes on the underside. And again, it's pushed through these 2 layers of fabric. You can use an awl, or you can use a pencil eraser if it isn't going through easily. Put on that inward section then. And now once again this rests right in that attachment, the white attachment of the pliers. Make sure everything is in stable and then matching up. And then pop on this inward section. Line it all up first gently. Draw the fabric away from that white attachment and then give it a nice firm squeeze the pliers. There we go. You can see that that's on securely and that everything is going to line up now when you popper the two together. It can be a little hard to undo these, I find, but do check it before you go any further with your work. So there's the plastic snap all installed. Now we're going to install the metal snap using a little attachment. We see our 4 pieces here, and they're going to be set in this attachment and struck with a hammer to complete the installation. Once again, I've marked my position. I've got the outward end. It's going to popper over the inward end, and I'm starting with this decorative end, putting it in the center of my button position. This is a little trickier because you have a set of prongs instead of one with the plastic snap, and you have to isolate all these metal prongs so that they're all exposed and everything is lying flat. You can do this with your hands, or here I go. I'm using this awl because sometimes that just helps to move the fabric over these prongs. So once you have them all sticking out of the fabric, then you can put the outward section and rest it. There's a groove there in the bottom, and that rests right in that ring of prongs. And instead of the pliers, we have this attachment tool. One side rests over the decorative end, and then the other side fits over the outward end. Check first that everything is in line and you're happy and everything seems stable. And move the fabric into a position where you can maneuver everything. And then just hit it 4 or 5 times with a hammer right over that center of the attachment. And you pull it out, and you can see here now that everything has been installed. It's correct, it's secure. So now we're half finished. That outward end is going to popper over the inward end. And check that this is all, you've got the right pieces, and this is all going to work. And now we move over to this undersection of the placket, and you can use a pin to check that you're in the center of your marking and that everything is going to line up correctly. So there we are through the center. And then once again, you're going to push the fabric over this set of prongs, isolate every single one of them so that you can see the prongs evenly. And this is the only way that it works. And this is all in the setup. Okay, once all the prongs are showing through and you're happy, then just rest the inward section. Again, there's a set of grooves, and that fits over nicely. You can't get this wrong. And then you get your attachment, and you set this over these 2 metal pieces. And take your time with this. Make sure everything is set up. Maneuver your fabric around so that your work is lying flat, and get that hammer right in the center of the attachment and strike that firmly. And there we have it. Now, the metal snap is installed. You can see that it's, well, you can hear it's a little bit easier to work with the metal versus the plastic. So now we can compare the different types of snap fasteners. We have the plastic. You can see it's a little bit clumsy to undo. I've sewn on a metal snap fastener here, which I find a bit cleaner and easier to work with. And also, they can be repaired if something gets damaged, where it's much more difficult to repair a plastic snap. And you can also buy this tape. This works so well, particularly on children's wear, because it's so much easier to install and everything is spaced out for you. And it comes in a variety of colors. You can even dye them to match your garment. So there's a comparison of different kinds of snap fastening.
Well, this now reflect then on the pattern challenge, because we've done the tutorials from that point of view. Let's Serena and Rebecca first and second. Was that a close finish, or to me, I was having a big debate on Unpicked with Ting and Anya. I thought Rebecca should have come first, because I was just impressed with that pattern placement. But Ting was saying, well, there's nothing difficult about that. But I thought that took another level of working out the whole look of it.
I completely agree. This isn't the first time that Rebecca and Serena have become neck and neck. And in most cases, I think Rebecca should have come out ahead. Yes, Serena picked a very safe fabric, nothing to match, nothing to do, and she's an immaculate sewer. There's no question about that. But I just thought she just made a very safe situation for herself, where Rebecca thought, well, I will also not worry about pattern matching, but she made the extra effort to feature the bib with a nice pattern. And I think, she should have won. And it's not the first time. I think in the pattern challenge, that was the first and second. And then in the transformation, they were second and third.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. It's again, it's the language in the workroom as well. It's, I really like what you've done, and I would expect nothing less from you, dear. That kind of language isn't helping.
No.
It does slant toward favoritism a little bit. And I think that's creating some frustration with the show. For me, certainly.
How are you feeling about Damien? And again, this continuation of him either not reading the instructions, or I think they alluded to, or he alluded to it, that I think I've got a better way of doing it. It's how it came across. I don't know whether I fully understood that, but he said, well, I've done it this way before, so I'm going to do it this way.
Yeah, that's right. It came with the elastic. And he said, I like to cut my elastic bigger, so I'm not going to do the 17 centimeters, whoever it was. I'm going to do this because it works out better for me. And I think, should I read the directions or should I rely on my instinct? Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But he's he does, he's got his own process for doing things, and that he's locked in. So
yeah, and I have some respect for that, because if you have done it, it's a bit like Fari in her final Made to Measure. She'd made that coat twice before for her two daughters. Yeah. So if you've done it, if you know it works, you should trust your judgment and do it how you do it, shouldn't you? Sure. Or are you in a competition and you have to follow the instructions because it's the pattern challenge and you should be following the pattern?
I don't think it was that difficult, was it, to cut 17 centimeters of elastic?
No, true.
Put it through, anchor it on one end, shove it through with your safety pin, feed it in, anchor it again. What's so difficult? Why make it harder? And if he misjudged that, the judges might have said, actually, you've got 19 centimeters of elastic in there, Damien, and the back is gaping. So we don't know, do we? Because we're not sure.
No, I thought well, he came fifth, so they didn't highlight that, did they? They didn't pick that out and to choose to pick on. But we know from that round that Andrew and Adina were bottom. So we've got a feel for that. So let's go into the transformation challenge, which was it was a bit of fun, wasn't it?
It was gorgeous. Yes. And it made me want to make a costume and go to a fancy dress party, because you could let yourself go, and you can, like Andrew said, your inner child just flows. And
didn't he come out? Didn't he blossom?
I was so thrilled for Andrew, because he has been overlooked. I think his skills are not acknowledged the way they could be. And yeah, that crab was just fantastic. What fun.
Yeah. And he clearly had a great vision for that. He knew I'm doing this, and it was just lovely to watch, wasn't it? How he used those noodles and created a sculpture. It's brilliant.
It made the picture hands, with the float. Great use of materials. Yeah.
And then, so from coming nearly bottom, 7th out of 8 on the pattern challenge, then top, clearly deserved to win that, didn't he? Any others in that round that took your eye, who you thought, oh, that's clever? Anyone stood out in that transformation challenge?
I liked the execution by Rebecca, because that, she had to make the 8 legs, she had to get some quilt batting, she had to stuff them, and she even made a hat. She had time, for an ensemble, which I thought, again, she should have won that. The jellyfish was interesting. Intriguing idea to cover one of those noodles with a metallic, kind of lycra fabric. That worked really well, but it wasn't that difficult to just make a dome out of that and then just hang a bunch of trim from it.
Yeah.
I thought that
it looked effective, though, didn't it?
It did. And it was
right.
Very clever use of materials.
Yeah. And then we had loads of mermaids, didn't we?
Another mermaid. Yes.
And I think we got, and it was the boys doing the mermaids, which was good fun. Adam, Damien, and Raph.
Yeah, and I liked Adam's mermaid very much. I liked the covered flippers.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, and it had that lovely kind of twisty sculpture to it.
But Damien struggled with that, didn't he? He struggled with the vision of it, I think.
Yes, he had trouble. Yeah, no, he couldn't see it. Couldn't see it done, could he? And some of the contestants have that problem. I think there was such a disparate selection of fabrics, from the foam and the and the neoprene and the noodles and all that. Just a real mismatch of things. It had to be big and sculptural, because to use those things, suddenly your piece is going to grow, isn't it?
Let's go into the made to measure, and particularly with Adam, because it was his downfall. What was the biggest issue going on there, or was it just so many little things, or was it literally that what's it called? PUL? He was using that type of fabric,
that rubberized cotton. Yeah, I've never worked with it. It just sounds unruly. You just read out the abbreviation and extend it, and you think, no, I don't think so. Give me a piece of Ventile any day. But I thought the Teflon foot would help him. It didn't appear to. So in that instance, geez, what can you do? Yeah. Sew with tissue, perhaps. But sewing some samples would have done better for him, if he learned to organize the cloth, and if you have time to practice what went wrong, that's a real mystery.
I've got a certain bit of a thinking about this, because I've been looking at other people and listening to people from last year. I get some sort of impression that they get the time to practice, but not with the material they're using on the show. Because one of the last year's contestants was saying they order it, they choose it, and sometimes they don't even see it because they have to choose online and the producers buy it.
Well, that's it.
But they get to practice the pattern. So Adam may have practiced with some, this might be all wrong, I don't know, I'm only guessing, and from what I heard from last year's contestant who was being interviewed, I get the impression that, so Adam may have had a chance to practice, but with his own material from his stash, but not the actual material that he had chosen. So he didn't obviously know what it was actually like in real life.
Okay, so knowing that, he didn't know what he was in for.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the only way I could work out, because if you did have the chance to practice, you would know that fabric and what it was like. Whereas that look, genuinely, he was struggling, wasn't it, to cope with it?
Yeah, very much so. But I loved all how he accessorized that coat.
Oh.
I loved the whistles.
Yeah.
I loved the little boat pockets, and I love the lining in the hood. That was just the workshop is not going to be the same without that man. He had the right kind of silly, you need that.
Yeah.
And the dynamic between him and Joe and the rest of the contestants, he just knew how to have fun. And he was so gracious in the end. I mean, we can talk about that, after we go through the other contestants. But
okay.
I think but point taken, didn't know the fabric, got it, complete surprise.
So we'll go through them one by one, because the made to measure is quite important. We've then got Damien next. Now, the brief was to use their imagination and make something a child would wear. I think Damien used his imagination here brilliantly, don't you? With that shower curtain.
With a shower curtain, that'd be great fun. It would make noise. It would crinkle. It kind of had this great iridescence about it. It was fun. The characters, these madcap fish on the shower curtain, they really came to life. He chose an excellent lining.
And he dealt with it well, because I know what those cheap shower curtains like. If you cut it, it can rip really easily, can't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's not made to be sewn, but obviously, yeah. And again, so he selected that cloth. That was really inventive. I liked, and I thought the magnets was brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Just really, really clever. And a kid would have a ball with that.
Yeah.
Ripping the hood on and off and putting it on in different weird places,
And
sticking the hood to
clamp.
Sticking the hood to his belly, using the other magnets.
I think he really managed that brief of using the imagination, because it was to make a raincoat, and a unisex raincoat, and that it was. What about Raf? His green and blue, it was kind of like a matte looking number. It wasn't shiny at all, was it?
No, that I did like the choice of colors. I didn't, to me, there was quite a big story behind it, a complex story.
Yeah.
I thought it was a bit muted. It didn't have that fun appeal to it for me. And then again, things went wrong, linings caught and something else happened with the hoods. So it looked, in comparison, it looked a bit tame and almost drab compared to the lineup.
Yes. And when you look at because as you said, it was more of a muted, compared that to the Frida Kahlo colours of last week.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it? Chalk and cheese. Edina tried a similar effect that Damien was doing, with having the plastic over the dinosaurs underneath, but it was almost that as she said, peekaboo. It was almost too opaque, wasn't it? You couldn't see much underneath.
It reminded me of Catherine and her Russian dolls.
Oh yes.
It just didn't work. She needed something almost transparent.
Yeah.
So it looked cloudy. The pockets and the bit in the hood and then the center front, it just looked cloudy to me.
But when you compare it to Raf, when you and the brief of using their imagination, she clearly had tried to think of something different, rather than just doing a raincoat, which could have just been a very simple pattern. She did try to go that bit further and do something different. Yes,
she tried to work with the contrast and an underlay, and then play on this, maybe the more vulnerable parts of the garment. So the pockets, you don't want those to get wet. You the center front, you want to protect your fasteners. So she had quite a bit of thought went into that. It's just a shame that it didn't have the effect that she planned.
Yes. Rebecca, hers was with the red sleeves and the white fun print down the front, and she had the hood issue, didn't she?
Mm-hmm. She sewed the wrong end of the hood together, and then it wouldn't go on the neck, so she recut, and that was a great save, I thought.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. And I thought it wasn't a loud presentation of her fabric or contrast or anything, but it was neat. It was well done. It was fun. It wasn't so attention grabbing, but I liked it. I liked what she did very much.
And Serena?
Again, it didn't shout out.
No.
It wasn't anything to holler about. It was just very safe.
She had to do a lot of top stitching. Maybe that's something we can talk about on another issue. As a technique, and a lot. I think top stitching came up a lot of the time because some had to top stitch. I got a bit confused with that. What can you give us some idea about why she had to top stitch, or why others were having issues with that?
I think she chose that just as an extra detail, but she chose to top stitch the darker part of her garment. When you top stitch, you almost double the effort of it, because you sew the seam, then you have to top stitch it. So you're doing this twice.
Oh, I see.
It does make a neater, flatter kind of appearance. But we're going to move on to, I'm sure, to Andrew, who did top stitching.
Yes, move on to him.
And made it to much better effect.
So his was reversible. So twice as much fabric, is that right?
Twice as much of the main fabric.
Right.
So where everybody else was lining with a lighter weight fabric, a silkier fabric made the garment go on and off easier. Andrew chose the same main fabric for both, reversible versions of the coat. So, and that would have had a slight effect on the fit, because although the judges said it didn't, somebody else said it didn't fit.
Yes, a lot of the
comments,
community said it didn't fit.
The community didn't fit. I don't agree with that at all. And I know why they might have thought that. What happened is, you're using a lot of the same cloth. You turn this garment inside out, it eats up fabric. You've got extra layer of pockets, you've got an extra layer of cuffs. So you don't have that slippery, lightweight lining inside. It fit. And it probably what happened was he did the fitting with the young lad, and it was fine. The volume was perfect. But then you line the entire thing with itself, with the heavy fabric, and it's going to eat up some of that cloth. And that's what happened. And it's not that it didn't fit. And in fact, did Patrick or Esme make any mention?
There was no mention. I went back to double check because I couldn't remember it not fitting. And I looked at the child wearing it, and we're talking, a centimetre. It was just above the wrist. Maybe, if you have a raincoat, you want it to cover up the wrist in your watch, so you want to come near the knuckle. So we're not, it was just above, but it didn't look short. It didn't look, if something was short, it'd be like a hoisty and halfway between. But it wasn't. It wasn't visible. I don't think to the untrained eye. No, I didn't think it was short.
No, I thought it was acceptable. Very good. And also with the little kid, they don't wear watches. They're running around, they're tumbling about.
Yeah.
Maybe a slightly shorter length is better. And so we all know what didn't fit, right? Adams didn't fit, and that was highlighted. If they were to do the poppers, it would, be slightly
too tight.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that you say that. I didn't understand that with Andrew. So because you've got two of the same outer fabrics, which he wouldn't have perhaps accounted for when he was measuring, it then ate up a bit more. So he probably lost some, half a centimetre or whatever.
Exactly. That's precisely what happened.
But wasn't it wonderful? Didn't it look good?
Beautifully done, fun, jolly, and I like his graphic approach to things. When he made that utility jacket, the orange and the navy, very graphic, very nice lines, very square up and down. Yeah, graphically really, really effective. It's I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks, because I think, with a bit of confidence, he's going to surprise us.
And then we move to the last one, which for me is where I got upset with the round at the end. was Fari's. I've loved Fari's work so far, and I love the rainbow and the unicorn and the raincoat, but I didn't think it was, because it won Garment of the Week, didn't it? And was it the gimmick of the ponytail that took it to the winner, or was it a wonderful garment? But it didn't look, I don't know, it didn't like have all bells and whistles as like
No.
Adam's or Damien's.
I completely agree. I thought the mane was a bit incongruous, to be honest. If you're running around and playing, that's going to get wet in a different way than the coat's going to get wet. You know, it's going to get muddy. It's going to get stuck in something. You know, I didn't see the point of it. I mean, as just a piece of sculpture, yeah, fine. But as a, you know, as a romping around garment for a little kid,
Was that?
I didn't see the point.
When we reflect on it, was it? I know the brief was to use their imagination and make something. Is that the imagination bit? So as Damien's got the shower curtain, and Andrew had the reversible, do you think that was what she was trying to think for that garment? Because otherwise the rest of the garment was just, I say just, that sounds terrible, it was brilliantly sewn, but it was simple. And we've always said simple is effective, which is frustrating because it was so simple, as in it looked, you know, didn't have extra things to it, did it?
No, not really. And I think I do have a problem with that print, you know, the rainbow and the unicorn. It really steers you that way, you know.
Yeah.
You either like that or you don't like that.
Indeed, and there's discussions of it, because the brief was a unisex stereotypes. Was that more for what a girl would wear? There are lots of debates about unisex anyway, isn't there, and gender.
Yeah, I guess you can't really go there now anyway. I mean, Grayson Perry would have loved it. You know, he would have worn it. You know, I know a lot of people who have theatrical, you know, sides of their life, and you know, men or women. So I think it's difficult to get involved in a debate like that.
But
I just thought it was just incongruous. But that sort of thing doesn't belong on a raincoat. I didn't get it.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people then came, because she'd chosen a garment that she'd sewn before. Very clever. I would, you know, if I've done a raincoat comes up, I'm like, yes, I've made this already. Brilliant. I completely agree. That's good luck, isn't it? It goes in your favor.
It does. And I think now we've got these two strategies. We've got some people who think they're in a bit of trouble. They don't want to leave the process. They've got to shine. They have to do something. They've got to make work for themselves and get the eye of the judges. That's one strategy. The other one is, I'm just going to do something I've done before. I'm not going to, you know, get into any challenging fabrics or technique. I'm just going to coast for a couple of weeks because I know I'm safe. So you've got these two different approaches to how they're going to get through.
Yeah. Well, she got Garment of the Week because I thought, well, it was good, but I just thought Andrews was more. When you're looking at the techniques, you're looking at the skills. So I was just expecting them to say Andrew got Garment of the Week, and when they said Fari, I was like, no, what? And I was so sort of upset by that I then completely missed when they then said Adam was to go.
Yes, I know. In my opinion, Andrew was streets ahead of Fari.
So for the future, then, you've still got your eye on Andrew. You'd like to see how he develops. Anyone else that you would like to see more of? Perhaps, come on, let's see more from them. Are they going to do a challenge? Are they going to push the boat out a bit?
Yeah, I'd like to see Adina really work on her strategy, because she, you know, the same as Andrew, maybe the same as Damien. You know, now it's time we start rooting for the underdogs. You know, we know what the others can do, and we want to see people improve, and we want them to take their turn. You know, we want them to have their, you know, their light, their bit of glory in this, and any one of them is capable of that. But maybe in this part of the process, people are getting tired. They get a second wind, they'll have to. But maybe Raf's getting a bit tired.
It's a good point you say about Adina getting tired. Halfway through the transformation challenge, Adina looked really flat, and she actually said, "Oh, I've got no energy." And I thought she'd given up. I thought because she came last on the pattern challenge, I thought she'd just got to that point where I see it. I'm going now. I know I'm going. So that's why I thought she was actually going to go, because
she kind of gave herself permission, didn't she?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how they film it, but it might be that they actually give people a break now.
Yeah.
Because people are getting tired. So maybe the schedule of filming was such they just gave people a bit more time or lightened up on the tasks, and maybe we won't see so many ringers thrown in. No more plastic poppers, no more stay tape. Who knows? Just give them a bit of a break.
Oh, and that's one thing we have to say. Oh, and I know we're criticizing and we're looking back at their work, and they may well be watching. We still have full respect for them to make those garments in the time that they've got, which is a ridiculous amount of time, isn't it?
It's impossible.
Yeah.
To choose fabric, to get a strategy, and then to cope with the directions. Like Andrew said, this is the thickest pack of instructions we've had. But I'd like to. I want everybody to win.
Yeah.
I think there should be more prizes. I think there should be something. There should be an acknowledgement for somebody who's improved the most.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Or a greatest save.
Yes.
What's like Idina's lovely utility coat when she got the zip wrong, but then she made it a design feature.
That's a lovely idea.
Just catapult this disaster into something which really works. I'd like to see more recognition, and it's going to get harder, Stuart. It's going to get harder at the end of these, when they say, okay, now here's the unhappy bit. Someone has to go, and that person is, and just.
Well, I love that idea. And I know they can't do it because it's been filmed, but why don't we, for the next 5 weeks, the remainder, why can't we have our little award for them, a recognition of the greatest save? I think that's a brilliant one. Each week we'll come up with the greatest save.
Let's do that. What a good, thank you. All right, I'm on board. Let's get your other two on that as well, and see how it compares.
Yeah, indeed. And give that recognition, and especially with some of the skills that they're doing and time. Look, it's finished.
Look at you. Oh wow. Oh, put it on.
Oh, well, that's the only thing. It's
not gonna go.
It's gone the other way. My toile was too tight. And I thought, well, I'll put 0.5 centimetre on each panel, like seam allowance. Well, that 0.5 centimetre is.
Oh, okay. All right.
I've got a lot of proof. But look.
Well, this happens, and it's pretty. Maybe you could, if you put your popper on the top, to the bill. Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
That might start to help. And then why don't you put in your binding in the back? Why don't you put some elastic?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I could do. Because if I pull it, there you go.
Yeah. See? There you go. Oh, well done. Look at that. Look at that complex junction.
Yeah.
Aces.
Really proud of that when you see that.
Bravo, Stuart. That really looks. Can I see the lining?
You sure can. It's silk so it's Harris tweed, and the silk is we still have 2 silk mills in Sudbury, and it's from Vanna's Silk Mill. So we've got.
Oh, very dapper.
Sort of greeny with gold spots. And look at my binding.
Beautifully done. Now you could sneak some elastic in there.
I think I probably could, but because it was a self-draft pattern, because Johan had made his own hat, and he then released the pattern. So I copied the pattern, but he only used 7 because he thought it was too big. So he only used 7 pieces. And I thought, I want to keep to 8 because 8 was on the show. And I think that's what's mainly used. And I did the stay stitching. I tell you what, the stay stitch, that made it so much easier, because you on each panel you do your stay stitch, and you go off, and then you go that way, and you go off, and it makes the point, doesn't it? And that's what made it so much easier. So when I was actually stitching it properly, I just stitched up to the point and then went back on myself. I didn't have to worry. I didn't have to think.
Works, doesn't it? It's all in the preparation. And it doesn't take that longer, does it, to set up the stay stitches and get that point?
No, because
well done.
With the stay stitches was straight anyway, and you just sew off the edge. And that's where I realized that when you said about preparation, how important it is. And I know I've talked about it before, the 5 Ps as me as a teacher that my dad taught me. Proper planning prevents, or proper preparation prevents poor performance. And when you look at that, yes, it's more work, and it's kind of like those people who don't pin. And I know I don't pin because you just want to go straight to it. But actually, if you do it, I know it's a stepping stone, but in turn, it comes back to you in a better garment, or just being more successful. So
what you're doing while you're pinning and while you're doing the stay stitching, your brain is relaxing into the next step. So it's also about not only preparing the piece that you're making, but it's preparing you mentally so that you're ready for the next thing. Do you have any more fabric? Can you cut a new one?
I will do. Yeah.
So then you might find somebody who needs a hat.
Yeah.
That size. But what's more, you could always display it in your shop as
oh yes, yeah, because it is there. I mean, it could still sit on a mannequin. And my cover button, I followed your tutorial, didn't have an issue with it. It went in, clamped. Beginner's luck.
I'm so glad. Oh, well, no, you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. I'm so glad the tutorials are helping people. Like, we're getting some lovely comments.
Oh, some phenomenal comments. Really nice. And all about you, obviously, with the way you are, your demeanor, about how you're helping us, how you take your time. So it's all you, Carol. So thank you so much. We're all learning, and what people are enjoying is the time, because we like the sewing bee, and they're getting to enjoy the techniques more and learn more about the techniques, because we've got that time to go into it. So thank you for taking that time to make them and to talk like we are now.
I'm so pleased. I really am so pleased. And there's a new community that I'm part of, and I think the show needed this extra dimension. It's this rounds it out. You don't feel so bad for people that they've been set these tasks, they've been thrown these ringers, they've not got enough time, and at the end of it, somebody, poor person, has to leave the process. What's it all about? But yet it's still selling, it still has the ratings. So but I think it needed this extra dimension.
Indeed, and people are loving talking about it, learning the techniques, talking about it, refining it. I know we've had Sue's been chatting. I think there was 2 or 3 conversations about, we could do it this way. I never thought about that. I could try it that way. And that's what's so lovely, isn't it?
That's it. It's putting this forward, offering it up, and saying, well, make it your own.
Yeah.
People may not want to use a big straight pin to turn a belt. That's fine. They might prefer the plastic popper to sewing on a metal one. That's fine. Make it your own.
Thank you so much. And as always, comment below, leave us some comments about what you think. It might be about the sewers and what they made. It may be about the controversy on who you thought should have got Garment of the Week, or it might be just to ask Carol some information on a technique or a tool. By all means, ask away, and either one of us will reply. But if it's technical, it will be Carol, not me. Well, unless it's about a cover button. Now I know how to do a cover button.
There you go. He's the new expert, everybody.
See you next week for Reduce, Reuse and Recycle Week. See you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.